All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Big Time Hoops, the podcast. And my guest today was a Mr. Basketball. Went out and played 4 years at Notre Dame, and now just being an adult out there in Chicago, representing the state with a hat, man, on the podcast. We got Tom Knight, Dirigo, graduate 2009, on the podcast here in 2021. Tom, just first thing right off the bat, man, how's life? Like, how are you?
I'm good, man. Hey, first, thanks for having me. You know, I've like I told you when you reached out to me a couple weeks ago, I listened to the Ralph Mims one. I'm like, this is great. I don't really know Ralph, but like I know Todd Hanson, his coach, really well, so I really want that. I'm like, I love this. I'm like, maybe I should reach out to him. I'm like, nah, he's got to reach out. That'd be weird. But I'm doing well, man. You know, just out in Chicago, been out here about 5 years, working for a company that everyone in Maine should be familiar with, in Unum. So just selling insurance right now, the traditional basketball path. D1 athlete selling insurance, but I mean, I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well.
I would have thought the D1 path would have been working for what's the rent-a-car company you always see on TV?
Enterprise.
Yeah, I thought all the college guys go work for Enterprise afterwards. I thought they give you the tools. I thought
they do give you the tools. Oddly enough, I have a lot of friends that work for Enterprise right now. None of them are Notre Dame grads, so I was destined, I guess. I didn't get the call into the rental-car life.
But how's life? I mean, are you still hooping at all? I mean, you're still relatively young, age-wise, you know, in terms of life. But I mean, basketball-wise, you're probably getting up there in age. But do you still play at all?
I mean, it's been weird. I mean, we're what, month 18 of COVID-19. Prior to that, so I have a basketball in my apartment, but like I haven't played organized ball in 18 months. Like you can't. They shut down all men's leagues. They shut down all the public gyms, and also until recently they took down every hoop in every park in Chicago. So like you drive by a park right now, and like the stanchions there, the backboard's there, but the rim is gone. So it's like not much basketball is being played by me right now. But prior, yeah, I was running a couple meds leagues, played with a lot of former D1 guys, really competing. And then there's this dude out here who's goes by TK. And he's got set up. Like he's got these text chains that go out to all these people like daily. It's like, hey, invite only, this gym, and like bring water, bring a reversible. It's like, we're getting, just let me know by this time. And it's like, all right, I'm in.
Yes. And out there in Chicago, so I'm guessing like the pickup scene, it's like you mentioned, you probably got like a good collection of dudes that you can run with out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, plenty of D1 guys. I mean, I run like a couple of guys that played in Michigan, a couple not like Vogrich, who was never a star there. But, you know, most of the star guys from the Big Ten schools, they kind of stay away. But, you know, you'll play against some guys that played at Dayton, and then just Chicago area schools all the time. Surprisingly, a lot of brown guys out here playing basketball.
Why'd you pick Chicago to settle down in? I'm guessing just because you went to school in the Midwest, so it's kind of just the big city that in the area, right? The nearest thing.
Well, so Chicago, the reason why this kind of happened. So yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's only a 2-hour drive from Chicago. So after my brief pro career, like I came back to Maine. I lived in my parents' house for a year. My parents were telling me I got to get a job, and little did they know, I was like, I'm not applying for a job in Maine right now. And like all my friends either live in New York City or Chicago. Yeah. At the time, I hated New York City, so it's like Chicago was the only choice. So then, you know, just sending my resume out in Chicago and find a job eventually.
So we got to talk about home. We got to talk about where you're from, because I know the school. I didn't know what town the school was in. I had to actually look it up on the map, right? So graduated, which is what, Dixmont's the town?
Whoa. It's Dixfield.
Dixfield, okay.
Dixfield.
Okay.
Town motto is the only one. Good reason. I mean, I love Dixfield, but it's like a very original name town. So the only one. Western foothills of Maine. Dirigo, I don't know if you know this, is actually an area high school. We got Carthage, Canton, and Peru. And Dixfield's the largest of the four.
It sounds like you've had to explain this before to people, where it is and what the school is and who makes it up.
My guy, in college, like first day of class, because Notre Dame didn't have like huge like lecture classes, like you had like 20, 30 kids. Like, and all the professors always did the same things. It's like, where are you from? You know, why'd you choose Notre Dame? And they're like, give me a fun fact about And like eventually by like junior year, I'm like, fun fact is I'm from Dixfield, Maine. You gotta laugh. You usually gotta laugh.
Yeah. So tell me about tell me about the area. You mentioned the foothills. Out by Rumford would be like one of the big towns out there too, right? Like, I don't really know Western Maine. I've only driven through there a couple times. I know it is on the map, but just tell me what it's like out there growing up out there in the foothills.
All right, Dixfield, Maine. Let's see. It is west, like it's in between Rumford and oddly enough, Mount Blue. Even though Mount Blue is technically Eastern Maine, so it's this little town, middle town, right on the Androscoggin River, right across the river from Mountain Valley. So you grow up with a large rivalry with that town, and then you take a little drive east, and you get to the big city of Farmington. That's pretty much Dixon right there. We got one stoplight. We now have a Dunkin' Donuts and a Sam's downtown. But other than that, it's not the big city, that's for sure.
I don't see what else you need. I mean, it sounds like now that you guys have Dunkin' and you guys have one stoplight, like what else do you want? I feel like if
exactly,
anything it was the charm.
Exactly. You can get your coffee and you can keep the hooligans at a favorable speed limit with that stoplight.
Growing up, Dirigo hoops, it was all about the girls, right? So they had like a little dynasty, late 90s, early 2000s. It was like they were either winning states or going to states every year. So was the boys program any good, or were you like growing up around the girls teams and want to watch the girls?
All right, I'm never going to say anything bad about the boys basketball program before I got to high school because my older brother is 6 years older than me. He played in that program. But my older sister's 3 years older than me, and so she went to many state championships. So yeah, I think Dirigo girls went to like 11 state championships, won 6 or 7 of them. As a little kid, like you'd want to go to the boys basketball games, but like they weren't winning. So like you wanted to get behind a team that you want to support, and the girls just never lost.
Yeah.
So it's like that was like, even though Dirigo High School's gym only fits like 300 people, it's like when I was a little kid growing up because of my older sister, and then just because of the success, like that was a can't miss ticket. It's like, it's Tuesday night in Dixfield. What are you going to do? Oh, we're watching Dirigo versus Halldale girls basketball.
So I'm guessing from the sounds of it, it sounds like you grew up in a basketball family. Like it's not like this is something you just discovered on your own. It sounds like it was just a family thing.
It was a family thing. I got pushed to it a little more than my siblings. So my older brother, he played, but my brother's 10 inches shorter than me. Older sister played. She got some D3 looks, but she ended up going to University of Maine for academics. And then it got to me, and my dad's just like, "You're going to play." And I go, "All right." 5 years old, I'm doing like Sunday 3-hour practices, and like I tell you, like I wanted to quit. My dad's like, "You're not going to quit. What are you talking about? Like this is your thing." And I go, "Okay." So yeah, because my dad played ball at Bowdoin and my mom ran track at UMaine. So like I guess they just wanted to make me into a little athlete.
Yeah, I thought when you said you got pushed into it, it was going to be a little bit later than 5 years old, and I would have guessed because of your height. They probably said, "All right, he's going to be big." And for the listeners that don't know, listed at 6'9"? Is 6'9" accurate?
6'9"'s accurate, yeah. But like I was a big kid as a little kid. Like when I was 5 years old, I wasn't like towering over people. I was just like a big kid. Like I was hefty. I think it was mostly my dad's like, "My kid's not gonna be chunky." I think it's mostly what it was.
So you got into it that serious, like at that young of age, like it started real young for you.
Yeah, I think our town did a really good job. We had a couple of really some parents that were really into it. And we had like a good group of kids too. So, we had a coach named Dave Garris. He actually coached at Mountain Valley for a while, coached at Levitt High School for the girls side. But he had a son named DJ. Well, still has a son named DJ, but a couple years older than me. And then he got really into just like coaching, like this, building the youth program. So, started on Sunday basketballs, and then when DJ at the third grade, he started coaching third and fourth grade travel team. And Dave and my dad were close, so even though I was in first grade, like I was playing up like on that team, not playing a minute, but like I was going to practice all the time and getting absolutely worked. But like I was in the gym, and then just kind of my dad just realized like he was making us play as much as he can. So even when I got to third grade, I still played up. I was on the third and fourth grade team, but I also was like practicing the fifth and sixth grade team. So pretty much just the winter months were just me in the gym for hours upon hours.
At what point did you become clearly the tallest kid around?
Clearly the tallest kid around. I mean, Dixfield's a small town. I mean,
How about like whenever like you started like traveling and playing against other teams and other towns and stuff like that? Like at what point like were you the biggest and it was clear that you were going to be the biggest?
well, I mean, I was the biggest in terms of like just complete body mass. I was already a tall kid, but like I didn't even get over 6 feet tall until the end of my 8th grade year. So like 8th grade basketball season, I'm 5'8", and then by the start of basketball season, my freshman year, I'm 6'3". And then the next year I'm 6'9". So I'm like, something happened in those 2 years where like, yeah, I went from the tall kid to like the freakishly tall kid in the area. And that's kind of what they called me.
How awkward and uncoordinated were you during that growth spurt?
I like to think I was very coordinated during that time. I don't think my parents would agree. Like, you know, sometimes I still like bump into things. So I don't realize how big I am, but I think I did a pretty good job. Like, there's no growth pains, and I don't think I was tripping over my own feet. Like coaches would say, like, oh, we want like middle school soccer coach, like we want you to play goalie because you're cool. And then like 3 months later, it's like, yeah, you're not coordinated. I go, well, I mean, what is it?
So when you're going through a crazy growth spurt like that, and your feet are just getting bigger, you got to buy bigger shoes. Like, where were you running to? Like, where was the nearest place to get kicks? I mean, there must not have been many options in town.
Not many options in town for sure. So I mean, like I said, you don't know much about Dixfield, but like, and I made a joke about Farmington being the big city as close to us, but actually Auburn is like an hour away. So like just trekking up Route 4, get into Auburn, go to the Auburn Mall, go into Olympia Sports. If they don't have anything at Olympia Sports, we're going over to BG Sports over by the Walmart.
Okay. And then also another thing that you're, besides being tall, you could shoot, right? You were one of those guys, one of those bigs who could shoot. Like, I kind of think you were ahead of your time in that regard, because now everyone's doing it. But at what point did you start working on the shot? Because you mentioned how you didn't really get big or tall until you got to high school. So like, were you working like on guard skills and dribbling and shooting like at a young age, and then it just kind of stayed with you as you grew?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to be a shooter. And like, let's just like, we can set up now. Like, I'm definitely not a 3-point shooter. Like, I was not before my time. Like, I think I was a little behind my time. Like, when I think of player comp, like I think like David Lee and like LaMarcus Aldridge, because like I can't shoot the 3 ball. Like I did in high school. I jacked a lot in high school, a single one in college. Like my first practice of college, Coach Bray stopped practice after I jacked when he told me that's not my shot, and I never shot again. But yeah, like in terms of like style of play, it's like when I was watching players, I was like watching like Kevin Garnett's. Like I never really like looked at Shaq, even though I was big, and be like, yeah, I can be that. It's like my post pay low is never that great. Like I just wasn't that great back to the basket, and I always just preferred hovering around the elbows. So just because of where I preferred to be, I kind of had to organically develop a jump shot. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be effective on the court.
So coming into high school, you go through growth spurt. What were your expectations coming into the season and just playing high school basketball? And did you actually exceed those expectations, or did you kind of meet expectations? Like, what was that transition like to start playing high school basketball?
Like, so freshman year?
Yeah.
So freshman year, yeah. I mean, straight varsity freshman year. Like I kind of expected to either be a swinger or straight varsity. I had to start a couple games freshman year, but you know, that first year, like I really didn't have much expectations in terms of like where my career was going to go, or really, you know, how good I could be. It's just like I was excited that I was finally able to show off to like at the high school level that I was good, and I could actually perform, opposed to like playing against like 8th graders and like kids that are younger than me. It's like I'm now be able to compete against kids that are older than me. And it was weird because my high school coach was also my sister's high school coach. So like, that was a weird experience. I know that's not connected to anything, but I just knew like my older sister would tell me, she's like, yeah, Coach Kane is having a bad day. Like, be careful. I was like, okay.
One thing you said that I think is pretty cool too. And people, people might think like, oh, he went to Notre Dame. Like, high school basketball probably didn't mean the same to me or him as it did to me because he was good and he was always good. But you talked about how you were just excited to put the uniform on and like just represent Dirigo. Like, that's a special thing, right?
Yeah, special thing. I mean, the day we handed out jerseys, I was the only freshman on the varsity team, and like literally had the last pick. Like it was the last jersey. I'm like, my dad wore 34, maybe wore 32 in high school, and down to the last pick, it was like between 32 and 25. And I'm like, I think I want 32. And then the guy, Eric Kersey, picks it. And I'm like, well, I guess I have no choice. I'm stuck with it. It's the only jersey that fits me that's left, 25. And I'm like, I guess we're going to rock with this one. And so I was just so excited to have that varsity jersey. So I know people do say it's like, well, you know, things ended up really different for me. Like, you know, maybe high school wasn't the highlight of my basketball career, but like at that time, that was just so exciting for me. I was still nervous every time I walked on the court.
What were some of the big games? You mentioned some of the rivalries, but you mentioned it not being a very big gym. But what are some of the games you remember? Some of the teams when they came to town, just packing the place, it being like a crazy environment, and just some really good games.
So, I mean, it came down to like biggest rival, Mountain Valley. We always played them twice a year. Their gym was, they could have like 2,000 in the gym because they have like pretty large seatings on both sides.
Yeah.
So just like whenever Mountain Valley came to town or we were going to Mountain Valley, that was always a big game. Like that was always circled on the calendar. Especially because like we grew up together playing against each other. Like there's a community center in Rumford called the Greater Rumford Community Center that used to hold like younger kids leagues. So they, you know, been playing against these kids forever. Everyone's parents work in the same mill. So it's like that game was always something to get up for, especially when they packed it in our gym because it would get hot in our gym. Like it's 300 people, old floor. Like every time someone takes a step, the whole thing's shaking. And then when you go over to Mountain Valley, like 2,000 people, it's like this is a way different experience. But then the other schools, like Booth Bay, was always tough.
That must have been a trip right there.
Dude, the Mountain Valley Conference didn't make any sense. I mean, I guess it makes sense in terms of like Class C schools available, but if you're going to call like a conference after one of the schools that did it, like you'd expect that some of them wouldn't be over an hour drive away. But yeah, I mean, we had Georges Valley, Wiscasset, Booth Bay over there, so it's like we were stopping at like Burger King on the way home, and we were excited about it.
Yeah, so. That's the one thing I don't understand is like the alignment thing with like Western Maine, and then being so close to schools that wind up being like in Eastern Maine.
Yeah,
travel like all the way down to the coast to like get games in, like just crazy schedule. What was was that the worst road trip? Was Booth Bay probably the worst one? That must have been like a 3-4 hour bus ride.
No, I think it's like 2 hours. Like Booth Bay, like it stunk, but it was more like on the way home because unless we won, but like because like Booth Bay is a game like because back in the day like. Their big guy who was a year older than me, Chris Noonan, like I've been playing against him for a long time. So it was always like matching ups against those guys. And like they were so well coached that like we knew we were in for a tough game going over there. So like it was a long ride, but like it was an exciting ride. And then if you lost, you're getting back to Dixfield at 10:30, didn't have a cell phone. So hopefully your mom's there to pick you up. This bus gets back.
The struggle used to be real. These kids don't realize that.
They don't realize like what it is. Like after a game, your game's like 2 hours away. You're stopping at like the first like McDonald's or like Burger King. You pull up a payphone. You call your parents on collect. It's like, hey, we're at this mark, and hopefully they know the timelines to get you.
So I know you guys eventually, when you got to senior year, you guys made it to the state championship game, which we'll get to. But was it a steady progression for you guys? Did you guys get better a little bit each year, or were you in the hunt starting right from the beginning?
Yeah. So prior to me getting into high school, we actually hadn't been to like the Augusta, like to the Western Maine tournament in like almost double-digit years. So that freshman year, like we weren't even predicted to be that good, but we ended up like putting it together. We had a lot of like hard-nosed, talented kids who've been playing together for a long time. We make it to the state set. We make it to the Western Maine semifinals. We lose to Winthrop, but Winthrop is always a beast. But we lost on a half-court chuck by Michael Gingras that knocked us out right there. And then the sophomore, junior year, we lost in the Western Maine finals. And then finally we broke it and made it to the state championship my senior year.
What do you remember most about these tournament games? Because you guys would have played, you guys were playing at Augusta? We're
playing at Augusta. No, so I know it's always a debate, like CCC, Augusta, Bangor Auditorium, all the Eastern Maine people are saying Augusta stinks. All the Portland area kids are saying Augusta stinks. Yeah. I thought the other two stunk. I love Augusta. I know like it's a little more spread out, but like the way it would set up, like how, they had the two sides, then they had the wooden bleachers at the end on one side. It used to be all the students from each school would be in each one of those wooden bleacher section. It would get rowdy there.
Yeah. I've only been to one game there. I went to a game there was like a college conference championship game. So there was no fans. Like there's just like
Right.
in that type of environment, like it didn't seem that great, but I could see like the packed house, how it could be a pretty cool environment.
It was also funny just because like I remember the first game I ever played there because like we're playing in shoeboxes of gyms, right? Like the backboards are connected to like the wall of the gymnasiums.
Yeah.
It's the only gym we're playing at that has like the standalone stanchion that like there's like a ways back, so depth perception's off. I remember I catch the ball at the elbow, and our foreman Kobe Knapp is like has his guy sealed, like so I'm gonna throw it over the top to him, and I throw it straight off the backboard, and I go, oh no.
So you mentioned how you guys progressed and got to a state championship game as a senior. What was your development like as a player? You mentioned came in as a freshman, got that was like 6'3", then 6'9" by sophomore year. How about you just actual overall progression from year to year? What was that like for you?
I mean, overall year to year, yeah. I mean, more than just size. It was really more like one, learning how to use my body, and then really developing a game. So one part of my game I always like to take pride in, and I still do today, is to be as efficient as possible in your movements. So it's like if I'm going to catch it, like I've never been that great of a dribbler. So it's like I'm trying to do one or two. Like if I can't beat you off one or two dribbles, I'm passing it. I'm going to try to get in a better spot. But so like that was more like my junior. That was really what I was trying to focus on. But my senior year, I kind of got a green light. Like Coach Kane just is like, like you've already committed to Notre Dame. Like you need to develop your game further. Like you just can't be just like around the rim guy. Like we're running plays for me to shoot threes. Like we're running America's play. We're coming up double screen, shoot up the middle, 4 threes a game. Like this is awesome. 25% from three, and I'm putting 4 or 5 up a game. It was awesome. It was the best. It was the best.
And that actually leads to my next question. So you mentioned how you wanted to be as efficient as possible. You probably didn't face too many guys that were 6'9" or anywhere near your size. And so I'm guessing on most nights you were getting some junk defenses, people just being overly aggressive, just getting that type of treatment all the time, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, people are always, especially like sophomore year, I was just the big guy, right? Like I mean, I was averaging like, maybe 10 points a game. So like no one was building their defense to stop me sophomore year. Junior year is when it really started, where guys were, because at that point, like I started playing AAU with Coach Parker. We just came off a good run AAU Nationals. So I started to develop a little name, and I was averaging around 20 points a game. So like, yeah, people throwing junk defenses. Obviously I was the only 6'9" guy in the conference. So you have like 6'1" guys guarding me, trying to find ways to get in my head, like pinching me. Like didn't like that very much. Like really hitting me low, and I'm like, man, this is bad. But I know we're good boxing ones, triangles, and twos. I think we got a line in 3 one time against me.
And then it's one thing to be 6'9", it's another thing to play like you're 6'9". They go, have you always been physical? And you mentioned like you were just a big kid, so you probably were physical back then. But when did you start playing like within like your actual size and to your capability and being physical? Like, is that something you had to develop, or did you always have that growing up?
I mean, really, like I showed spurts of it in high school, like in senior year, like really pushing, but like, I was going against, because I had to go against these strong guys that were, that were 10 inches shorter than me. So I really had to learn how to like use my upper body, like, and get low and really use my body. But I wouldn't say I really developed how to become like a strong player, functionally strong, until college. And that just became because when I got my freshman year, it's like I'm playing against grown men. I'm playing against Luke Herringody every day in practice. He just pushed me over. And like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, around the same weights you are in the weight room. It's like, you're just throwing me around like a rag doll here.
You think a lot of that was just not facing that type of competition in high school, that they're just not really being exposed to? Because I mean, I'm guessing too, like just you couldn't go find someone your size to play pickup against, or to kind of measure yourself against. So
no, it's definitely a tough transition going as a big, or really anyone, going from like Class C main basketball into like Big East hoops. Just because, like you said, there is no one my size. Like I'm going from, when I walk in the court in a main high school game, I'm the biggest guy by like 3-4 inches, right? To go into a Big East, going into practice first day at Notre Dame, we have 4 guys that are 6'9". So like it's way different. Like ways that I was using my body in high school that I thought were efficient, that were working on smaller guys, just like, have a strong base, but I wasn't strong enough up top to really absorb the contact high, because I never had to worry about it. So that, yeah, huge difference. So I wouldn't say like, people have asked this question before. It's like, I don't blame, like it's not the competition I played in Maine that like kind of made me have to get redshirted that year. It's just the fact that like, I didn't push myself enough in high school because I thought I was good enough in high school. Like, I'm so efficient now. Like I'm getting like 25, 26 a game in a Maine high school game. It's like, this is going to translate. It's like, that was a dumb thought of mine. It's like, no, I really should have really focused on how to use my upper body because I could have been even better in high school and probably would have won a state championship opposed to losing the state championship.
Did you ever come close to just losing your shit at any point during the season? Like with people just just taking things a little too far, either just, because I'm guessing you were, not only were people probably taking cheap shots at you, but you were probably getting verbally as well, just because, like you said, you had a bit of a name. You were Mr. Basketball, obviously, so people knew who you were. You ever just come close to just losing it at any point?
I did lose it. I mean, one thing, like I got humbled quickly at Notre Dame when I realized I was now just a small fish in a big pond. Like, I humbled quick because I mean, my senior high school, I did get a little cocky, and I wasn't afraid when someone was going to talk to me. I was going to talk back to them. But yeah, I lost it a couple times. Like, I will say this right now, like Wiscasset, those people got in my head senior year. Their fans were booing me, like their players were cocky, which was weird because like I liked the dudes, but like on the court they were like so nasty to me. Like one time we were playing a game at Dirigo, Jason Dennison strips our point guard at half court. He goes up, junks it. Their starting four-man like runs in. He was like, "What you can do now, Mr. Notre Dame?" And I just go, What's going on here?" So I'm like, I got mad. So I got the next position. I got up and dunked it on him. I just like ran out, bumped him like, "That's what I'm going to do," and I ran back the other way. So not proud of that. But yeah, there were times that I got a little heated that I lost my cool a little bit in high school.
And it must have been frustrating too, because I'm guessing you picked up a lot of offensive fouls, like the way these Maine refs like to call the charge. I'm guessing there's a lot of times just because you were big, you got a lot of bullshit fouls called on you.
A lot of them, yeah. I mean, like I said, like I was never like I wasn't really a bull in a china shop the way I played offense, anyways. But like, because like I said, I'm taking one or two dribbles. Like I really prefer taking a mid range to anything else. But like when I did have it in my mind, and someone takes a charge, and they call it on me, oh yeah, like that's one thing I was always like not one of my best features. Like one of my finer things is like I wasn't afraid to talk to refs. Like I wasn't going to yell at a ref, but I'd say something slick to them, and then they didn't really like it that much.
Who were some of the guys you kind of kept an eye on, throughout junior, senior year? Because I'm guessing Mr. Basketball might not have been something you thought of coming in as a freshman, but definitely it was probably in the back of your mind as you started moving along throughout high school. Who were some of the guys you were keeping your eyes on and kind of measured yourself up against that were in your class?
In my class, so we had a lot of really talented guys. We had a bunch of guys play off in college. So we had Gordon Fisher, who was from Camden. Always was watching him. Mick DeStasio from Chevrolet, James Morris were always guys I was paying attention to. And wise, we had some good players in that class that I think a lot of people do forget about. Just because they didn't go off to a D2 school or go to a D1 school, but like talented guys that I was focusing on. But most of the time, I played up majority of my life though. So like the only time I played in my age group for like AAU was going into my senior year. So I always played 1 year up. So like I was always comparing myself against like the Sam LeClairs of the world and the Ryan Martins of the world.
And who did it come down to for Mr. Basketball? Who are the other two finalists with you?
It was me, Gordon, and Mick.
And
Gordon wasn't there because Gordon was like on a mission trip. So like, and Mr. Basketball is like the two thing, right? It's like excels in basketball and excels like academically and everything else. I'm like, well, Gordon isn't here right now because off doing things to improve the world. He probably deserves it over me.
What do you remember most?
Won a state championship.
What do you remember most about that weekend? Because it's a fun weekend. Not only do you have that, you got the McDonald's All-Star game as well.
Yeah.
So what do you remember most about that whole weekend?
There's a couple things. One, what I was wearing. I looked awful. I was wearing a short sleeve, like button down, blue shirt with a tie. I didn't shave. I didn't have a haircut.
Was that on purpose? Was that the look you were going
for? I was a sloppy kid. Like, I don't know why. I just didn't think about it. Like, I used to have like the longest hair. Like, it was like a tennis ball. It was gross. Like, I grew a neck beard. I didn't. and I just like didn't value like good clothes. Like I wore sweats every day at high school. So it's like they make me wear like a button down and a tie. I'm like, I really don't have much. So let's put on this thing. And I'm like, I can't believe I wore that in public. Two, during the speech that they're like, when they're talking to all the players for the Eastern Maine team, the coach for Calais is the one announcing everybody. And this was like fresh off. We lost the state championship to Calais. And Cal Shorey hit a big three in my face to put them up by 2 or up by 1 with 8 seconds left. So he just goes, and big shot Cal.
Oh.
That stung. That one stung a lot.
Did you have a speech for the acceptance speech? Was there an acceptance speech?
I did have to give an acceptance speech.
Did you say anything back to the Cal's coach or to Cal? Did you mention anything? Or?
No, I didn't say anything back.
You couldn't, right?
I came with a pre-planned speech. I just like did a typical thank the voters, thank the coaches, thank my teammates, that kind of thing. I don't think probably not the greatest speech they've ever heard. Probably one of the worst, honestly.
Did you participate in the slam dunk contest the next day?
Yeah, my dad made me.
Yeah. What was your arsenal of dunks?
It was bad. Like go up, like slam the backboard with 2 and dunk it.
Is that where Pat Connaughton got it? Did you teach him that at Notre Dame?
He had that in his arsenal before I got there.
Okay. Can't take credit for that one.
I can't. I mean, he definitely got all the jump. I think he stole some of mine after he left Notre Dame. But I actually have a history of dunk contests that make me hesitant to ever do them because I did an NBR dunk contest my junior year at high school, tried a 360 and fell. And ever since that moment, I'm never doing a dunk contest ever again. And my dad was like, you're doing it. I think he signed me up for it. I'm like, I really don't want to do it. I'm like, I'm just going to go up and dunk it. Like, I'm not going to embarrass myself again.
You should have just took that approach and just done like 3 like boring, ridiculous, like just plain dunks, just like be like, get booed by the crowd. You should have went that route.
I think that was like my second. Like I went up and like the first dunk went up, hit the backboard, dunked it. Like, and then the next one I went up with 2 hands and dunked it. And I just like went off like a champion, like celebrate. I'm like, I don't know. I'm clearly not the type of guy that needs to be in this dunk contest right now.
What do you remember most from the game? Games typically are more laid back, right? More of an all-star game feel. No one really going too hard. But is there anything that stands out from the game itself?
I feel bad because I can't remember his name right now. But there was a guy from Central Rusick. His name was Manny. What is his name?
Martinez.
Manny Martinez. Just a little guy. Yeah. And like we were like, I guarded him a couple possessions. He guarded me a couple possessions. Like that was like the only thing that really stood out in the game. Just because I'm like, this guy is so small. Like I have to guard. Like kid, like talk to him for a little bit after. But I'm like this is what this is gonna be. Like I hope he's expecting much out of me today.
Looking back on the 4 high school years, what's the moment that kind of stands out the most, like the one you're most proud of and the most difficult part from high school?
Most difficult is definitely state championship senior year. So like I said, it's the only one we ever went to. It was a hard-fought game. Calais was pretty much up the whole time. Then we really stormed back in the 4th quarter. We got up with like 15 seconds left, first lead of the game. Call timeout. Like we're all like rallying up. I'm like, yeah, we're not losing this. Like we're not losing the lead again. Typical, like just me high school, just like yelling. Like it probably sound like an idiot saying it, but I was saying it. Come down. So actually, there's probably 30 seconds left. Cal Shorey shoots a 3, absolutely overshoots it terribly. Like hits the backside of the backboard. I'm like, okay, our ball back. We don't score. They come down. Now there's like 8 seconds left. Cal gets the same look again. I close out late, hand up, just bangs it in my face. So down 1. We come down. I get the ball like in my favorite spot, mid post, right side, go middle, 1 dribble, take like a kind of a leaner like jump shot, hits the back rim, hits the front rim, hits the side rim, falls out the rim. Dirigo loses by 1. Devastated. It's not even close. Like probably one of the lowest parts of my basketball career is that moment right there.
It's just one of those things, right? I mean, like there's some things that you just won't ever forget, and that right there, you probably still relive that from time to time. Well, you just relived it right now. I'm sorry we have to go through.
No, it's okay. Life's been good since 2009. think that was funny. There's some backlash on that one because we did win like the sportsmanship award that year for Class C, and like when they handed us the Western, like the state runner up, like I was the captain of the team. I grabbed it, and just like gave it to one of our freshmen, and like I guess some people in NBR didn't like that. So insult to injury, I lose the game on a shot, and then I get kind of tarnished because I guess I wasn't very sportsmanlike after we lost.
What's the highlight? Is it the Mr. Basketball?
Highlight definitely. Like I mean, Mr. Basketball is big. I do know we had a game. So like I said, like so senior year, like Callis were like they were mean people. Like there's no way to say it. Like their fans were mean people. Like that. I don't really know now, but like back in the day, like NBR was a popping website. Like
I want to talk about NBR afterwards because you brought it up a couple times.
Okay, but it was a popping website, and like Wisconsin people just didn't like me. Like their fans thought I was a bum. So first game of the year, and we're playing Wisconsin, and I'm like, I need to beat them. Like we need to beat them. And I think our team scored 50 points. I scored 37 at 25 rebounds and 9 blocks. So that's like the highlight of my high school career right there. I'm like 37, I can handle that.
NBR, like people might not like the kids nowadays. They probably had no idea what that is, but back then, like that's what we had, right? It was message boards. You go in there and just read the different threads. Like, how often were you in there?
Dude, I was in there every day, and like it wasn't because like I was like. I cared much about myself. It was like starting like it was in 8th grade. Like I just loved pulling up like all the blogs. There was some like whatever like Speed 33, whatever Giesel said. We're really going back in the day here. Like whatever like Archer Bunker was saying, like whatever Bob Cymbalek was saying. I was reading every single word. And then like it got weird when they started talking about me. But I'm like, I'm still gonna read it because like this is my day to day. I'm in study hall in high school. Like what am I gonna do? Dude, like all right, I got all my homework done. Like let's go on NBR.
Did you create ghost accounts? Like, were you in there?
Dude, I never did. But I know one of my teammates did one time. It was a Mountain Valley versus Dirigo thread that got heated, and like between like the two fan bases, and like one of my teammates made up a ghost account and stated he was a former player that he wasn't, and then it got like that former player came into the conversation like, no, this isn't me. I swear.
It's still out there. You should hop on there after this and just start a thread. Just be like, hi.
Want to be like, I don't, dude, it's dangerous. That's like pre-Reddit. Like that you go some rabbit holes on the old NBR days. I loved it, but like there was some toxic stuff said back then.
It's good stuff. I miss those days. We got to talk about the college recruitment because obviously you went to Notre Dame. I want to know what this whole recruitment process was like. When did you first start getting looks? Like when did you kind of break out and get on that scene? Because I mean, like to be offered by Notre Dame, like you had to have been seen somewhere and it had to have started somewhere. So
right.
What was the whole process like for you? When did it begin?
So like the whole like recruiting process, like for college, it started like right after sophomore year of high school. Not so much like college recruiting, but as soon as sophomore year ended, like every AAU team in the state started calling me. Like because I came off a good year, I started building like a little reputation. So I had like MBR calling me, Maine Hoops calling me, Maine Elite calling me, MB Nation wasn't a thing yet. And like Team Maine calls, they said we want to play for you. So it's like, and eventually like my dad's doing all these conversations and like we just like decide we're going to play for MBR and Carl Parker. It's like we know guys have played for him in the past, they really like him. So like start showing up to the MBR practices, and like, you know, I thought I played AAU prior to this. Like, you know, we were playing every weekend, but most of the things were like Portland area. We'd go down to Boston every once in a while. Like, no, the schedule's different now. It's like you're only in Maine. Like, we're only playing in Maine these weekends. Like, we're going to Boston, we're going to New York, we're going to Providence. Like, we're really going to show off who we are. So I think it was like first or second like weekend tournament that coaches could be played. I started catching the eye of some like low major like Division I teams, like BU and Maine started getting in the fold. Really wasn't in the greatest shape at the time, so I figured, okay, I'm a low major guy, I'm a mid major guy, it's fine. Like, you know, I'm just lucky to get looks, like, because like honestly, like going into high school, going into like freshman year of high school, my dream school was Kobe College. Like I wanted to play at Kobe so bad, so like that summer before junior year, so like after sophomore year is like when it really picked up. We started doing like these headliner showcases, like went to this thing called so it was a Reebok headliner. It was in Mansfield. It was like a satellite camp for like tryout for a bunch of these different you know, all-star Reebok sponsored camps around the country. I do really well at the headliner camp, and I get invited to breakout all-stars, which was like an underclass, like 250 like kids around the country, underclass. So like no seniors, just like going out there, like it was in Chicago of all places. There, like I played awful, but like I started getting my name out in the circuit, and that's when it kind of picked up. But honestly, I thought I was a mid-major guy at that point. Like at Northeastern was sneaking in the fold. They were kind of hesitant, but it really picked up the next year in AAU. That's when it started getting crazy.
Who were some of the kids you were running with? Because you mentioned some of the kids in your class, but you mentioned also playing up, and there was a ton of talented kids, like late 2000s, early 2010s. Right. So some of the kids you were running with.
So my first year when I started really getting heavy in AAU, like Sam LeClaire was on the team. I feel like a jerk for not remembering all the names now. Eric Libby, Lee Suvalu, Brandon Toma. If I'm missing one of these guys, they're going to call me out on it. Hopefully not. But so mostly like that type of guy. Like not really many Portland area kids, because like Portland area was like run by Maine Hoops at that time. So I was playing a lot of like the Western Maine to Northern Maine guys. And then the following year, like when I played my last year at AAU, it's like we had a couple guys that my grade, but we also had Keegan Highland was on that team. Stefano Mancini was on that team. Again, Indiana Faithful was on that team. So good teams, like played with great teams.
So how did it come down to Notre Dame? And you thought one thing at one point, but then you had major D1 schools coming at you. So who were some of the schools that it came down to before ultimately picking Notre Dame? And did Mike Bray ever travel to Maine to come watch you play? Like, was he ever? Mike Bray's
been to Dixfield, Maine.
Oh shit! Okay.
He has. Mike Bray. He didn't like him. A couple of the coaches came up. Coach Parker came down to Dixfield. We got the gym, Darrow High School gymnasium rented out for like an hour. Coach Parker ran me through a workout. We got Mike Bray sitting in a wooden bleacher. Anthony Solomon, who was our associate head coach, and my dad just like chilling on the sideline watching me work out.
No pressure right there. No pressure during that workout.
No pressure. Like I shot really well from three, but again, I guess I didn't mean to shoot a single one in college. But kind of all the lead up, like especially when like major programs started like hitting me up, I tried to come into like a really like try to be balanced mindset of like where I wanted to go. Like I really wanted to go to a place with high level basketball. Like my dream was to play like since I was a little kid, like to play in the Big East or like the ACC or something like a big conference. But I also like knew it's like, what are the chances like I'm going to turn that into like an NBA career? Like not great. Like I'm really confident. Like I thought like there's a chance, but like I also need a backup plan. So I was like, I need high level athletics paired with high level academics. So when Notre Dame started calling, like Vanderbilt was calling too, like Michigan like was a little interested, like Penn State, certain like Minnesota was calling, but like honestly, I said no to Notre Dame at first, because like initially a kid who never lived outside of Maine, like I'm not going anywhere outside of New England. And I told Vanderbilt like, thanks, but no thanks. We've been talking for months, but like, you're too far away. Like I have no interest going that far away from home. They're like, okay. And then like Notre Dame pulled the scholarship offer initially. Because they only had a few scholarships. We only had 4 scholarships available. We already had 2 kids committed. And then we had Mike Brohammer was taking his official visit one weekend, and they're like, Tom, like, we need you to take your unofficial visit the weekend before. Because if he takes this, we're not going to have a scholarship because we're holding one for Ryan Kelly, who was a 5-star guy, ended up going to Duke. But I mean, McDonald's All-American. Obviously, if he's in Notre Dame's top 5, like if Notre Dame's in his top 5, Notre Dame's going to hold a scholarship for him over me, right? I knew where I was in the pecking order. Notre Dame wasn't the only school that told me that. But Notre Dame was the only school I wasn't offended when they said that. But like, so I couldn't make the trip. Mike Brohammer commits. Notre Dame calls me, like, hey, we like you. We just don't have anything for you right now. I'm like, it's too bad, but okay, I get it. So I just like started like looking at other schools. Like I visited Davidson on an official visit, went to North, which is not in the Northeast, obviously. Northeastern, I visited Maine, Then I visited Rutgers, and then Notre Dame called me back. It's like, hey, Brian Kelly committed to Duke. We'd like to bring it on campus. And I go, all right, we got one visit left. Let's try it out. I mean, it's Notre Dame. Like, might as well like visit it. And like, just fell in love with the place as soon as I stepped on campus.
What was it about the actual basketball fit though? I mean, yeah, you mentioned that you were thinking academics and basketball, but there had to be something there basketball wise that ultimately made you go there. So what was it about the basketball fit that you liked?
So the thing about like Coach Bray's offense, and it still is true to this day, like Coach Bray has a really free flowing offense. Like you don't, there's like a lot of schools you go to, like every single possession that isn't a fast break, like you're running a set offense. Like the coach or the point guard is calling a play, you're starting a set spot, and like then you go. Like I think that honestly is better. Like it fits my style a little better. I just don't like it as much. But like when Notre Dame's like playing, you're truly playing like a controlled pickup game. Like Coach Bray is like, we're running 5 out or like a 4-out offense, one guy in, just like everyone's moving off each other. So that was like one thing that like really I liked about Notre Dame. Like Coach Brady, he sold it hard. Like he's a great salesman. He's like, listen, I want smart guys on my team. I want guys that I can trust to make the right decision on the court. Like I'm never going to tell you where to go. It's just like you need to make it like a decisive decision so your teammates can make the right decision after you. So like after seeing them play a couple games and me thinking at the time I was a decent 3-point shooter with the amount of threes they were putting up, like, oh, Notre Dame the right choice.
And then you were also making the jump from Classy Hoops to Big East basketball, and I'm a diehard Big East fan. People always talk about the old Big East. The old Big East was great, which it was, but I like that Big East time, like the mid 2000s, like to when it kind of folded, when it was like the original Big East. Then you had Louisville, Notre Dame, I think Cincinnati might have been in there, right? Just all these. Yeah. It was huge. You guys were like 9-10 teams into the tournament every year.
Yeah, I mean, I think one year we had 9 teams, and it was crazy. I mean, I think that was the year, like, it was my sophomore year, I think. We were like the number 2. We were a 2 seed, be like 9 teams that were ranked. Like at one point, there was like 9 teams in the top 25. It was crazy. Like multiple NBA guys, just like you're playing against an NBA guy every single night. But yeah, that old Big East, I miss it. I mean, and I know like when they did like the Requiem to the Big East, like I don't know if the old one, like you said, like the one that like strictly is like the Boston colleges of the like the Providences, the UConns. But yeah, I mean, you're going up like as Notre Dame in the Big East, like, yeah, you were excited about going out east, but also you're playing against like Marquette twice a year. Marquette was a huge rivalry just because they were a Catholic school as well. We're playing Paul, we're playing Louisville, we're playing Cincinnati. Like those were like the Midwest like Big East teams, like they did not like each other very much.
No, and they, like it could have been like you guys could have like split it in half, and like you could have just had like the Midwest biggest teams, and that would have been a nasty conference in itself. But then you mentioned all the schools out east as well, like just the Big East tournament, right? The Big East tournament, like that was like I think I like that more than the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. Like I used to just sit there and watch like what is it 4 or 5 days of the Big East tournament.
Yeah, it's 4 or 5 days. Like there's nothing better. Like when we went from I'm glad we're in the ACC now. ACC is a great conference, but like we were in the ACC my 5th year because I got redshirted my freshman year. There's a big difference between going to Greensboro, North Carolina for a week and going to New York City to play in MSG for a week. I'll tell you that. Like there's nothing better than that week or week and a half you're in New York to play the Big East tournament. Like just like walking in MSG the first time for like, I guess like the first couple of days are great, but like you don't really pack it into like round 3 or 4, and it's just like the atmosphere of the Big East, like late round Big East tournament in MSG. There's like nothing compared to that.
You have any moments that stick out? Because you would have been there. Right? I think Kemba's run was that your freshman year or sophomore year?
Kemba's run was my sophomore year. Yeah, I wasn't getting any tick back then. Like we were really good that year. Like we were number 2 in the country at one point. The year that Kemba made broke Gary McGee's ankles and made the shot to win the Big East tournament. Yeah, I was on the team. Kemba, fun fact, actually lost Big East Player of the Year to my teammate Ben Hansbrough. So at least I have that. Like I played with the Big East Player of the Year over Kemba. I think Kemba's pro career is a little better than Ben's, but that's neither here nor there.
And you just mentioned Pitt. Like Pitt was nasty at that time. Villanova was nasty at that time. Like just so deep, such a deep conference.
I mean, yeah, when we were talking about Big East schools, I just forgot about Villanova. Like, yeah, like playing at Wells Fargo Arena. By the way, did you hear the alarms going off?
Yeah, is everything all right? Are we okay?
Something's happening in Chicago right now. I don't know what it is. Like, that happens when you live in the big city. But yeah, I just completely forgot about Villanova. It's, unbelievable.
Syracuse and Georgetown and all these.
We'll never forget about Syracuse. I had some bad games at Syracuse.
Yeah, what's it like playing in the Carrier Dome? Because I mean, it's not as intimate. Obviously, it's huge, right? So you don't like the fans on top of you like you do with some of these other venues. But
it's the only place you can play, and there's 30,000 people watching.
Yeah, and it just seems like, and like they're diehard Syracuse fans, right? So they come out and pack the place, and it's just a crazy environment.
Crazy, like. I mean, even if it was like we played with Syracuse a couple times during spring break, and students aren't going to be there. Like, because some schools you go to, you play during spring break, like the students aren't there. Like, still packed, but like it's not as loud. Like Syracuse, like spring break games, we're still packed with students. I'm like, these kids like not like go to like Daytona Beach or something, guys. Like, you don't need to watch this game. But yeah, Syracuse, like Carrier Dome. I mean, the first time I walked into Carrier Dome for like shoot around practice, I'm like, I couldn't believe how big it was. This is crazy. Like, I'm like, it's so cold in there too. It's so cold.
So the thing with college basketball that I never quite understood is that there's always like hatred towards the white guy who kind of plays below the rim and is physical, like the Tyler Hansboroughs of the world, Luke Herringotys of the world, Jack Cooley. Like, were you one of those guys? Like, were you getting a lot of hate from opposing schools because you were like the big white guy at Notre Dame?
No, man, I was never good enough to take the hate. Like, I'd have a few like offshoots, like when I was like playing well, like, because again, like, I mean, my haircuts weren't great in college either. Like, they're just like chirping me about my haircut or like my beard or like my neck beard, because I really couldn't grow a beard back then. But like, they'd just be chirping me and like calling me ugly, which I'm like, whatever. It's like, at least they know I exist.
I got it worse than Wiscasset back in the day.
I got it worse than Wiscasset. At least I don't have parents tell me to F off, But it was honestly some of the players that would say things to me, not because I'm white, but because like I wasn't like on like top tier ilk. I wasn't all conference. Like, especially because I was so in and out of the lineup. Like, I have a very short leash. So like there might be a time where I didn't play in a couple games, and then I come in and I'm guarding like Shane Bohannon from like Louisville, and Shane Bohannon had no respect for me whatsoever. And like, as he's absolutely dominating me, like he's telling me about how he's dominating me, and like there's nothing I could say. Like he's backing me up, like putting his shoulder down. I was a strong kid, like, especially like my senior year. I was the strongest guy on the team. So I'm like, there's no one throwing me around. And we have Shane Bohannon out here his legs are like tree trunks, like backing me down the post, putting his shoulder to me. I'm going back a foot every time his shoulder hits me. And as he's saying, it's like, you can't guard me. You can't guard me. You get no tick. You get no burn. You shouldn't be. And like, when he's saying that, like, I know he's wrong, but like, I believe I believed it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be guarding you right now. It's
like, so you mentioned how you didn't really get much playing time earlier in your career. You got some minutes junior and senior year. At any point, did you kind of wish maybe you went somewhere else and could have got more minutes, maybe gone to one of the smaller schools and played a lot of minutes all 4 years, or did you like your Notre Dame experience?
So I love my Notre Dame experience. So like pretty much like so early, like I knew I wasn't like Coach Brady's changed a lot. He's evolved a lot, and I think he's had to with like the change of kids. Like going into Notre Dame, like Coach Brady loves his older guys. Like he very rarely, unless you're a stud, like when I got recruited, like you're not playing as a freshman. Like you're not necessarily you're redshirted, but like you're gonna be in the bench. But like sophomore, like junior, senior year, like Coach Brady, he has a thin bench, like 7 guys play. So it's like you expect that you're gonna learn the system over 2 years, and then junior, senior year, you're gonna be playing 30 minutes a game because you only play 7 guys. Obviously, I was never a season I averaged 30 minutes a game, but like junior year I was like 7th man, and then 5th year and the senior year, like I was in and out of the starting lineup. I mean, there was times of doubt, especially sophomore year, because I mean, redshirt year, like I knew I wasn't going to play. I was getting all these extra workouts in. It's like, sophomore year is like coming up, not really playing much, but like we are really good. So like I get it. Like we have 8 amazing players. Like we have Biggest Player of the Year. We have Tim Evermitis, who I think that an ACL injury would have been in the NBA for a long time. But like I couldn't be mad. Like I'm like I wasn't playing because I don't think I was good enough. It's like there's this pack of seniors that are amazing basketball players. Next year is my year. But then like junior year happened, like one of our guys got a 6th year of eligibility, and I started doubting it. But there was never a time I really put any serious thought into it, just because like, and I've told my friends this before because they've asked me a lot. Like, did the basketball experience in Notre Dame go exactly how I would have liked it to go? No. Like, I think at the end of the day, I had a successful career, but like basketball is only a part of your college career. Like I said, like academics was a very important thing to me, like going into college. So like, you know, basketball may not be perfect, but like academically, like I can't get it. What am I going to get for a better education? And socially, it's like I have all these great friends. It's like, you know, 66 2/3% of like Notre Dame experience is perfect for me. It's like, yeah, like the Notre Dame, like I went to Notre Dame because of basketball. Am I the best basketball player I could be? Probably not, but like everything else outweighs like the lows in the basketball court.
You play with a bunch of talented teammates, as you just mentioned, a bunch of guys that made the NBA, Jerry and Grant, Pat Connaughton, Heron Godey. I'm sure there's more too, like during your time there.
Yeah, a few guys.
Yeah, I might have left a couple out there, but my question for you is: you went to a football school, you had all these NBA guys. During your time at Notre Dame, was there any bigger star on campus than Skylar Diggins? Was she the biggest star there during that time, or was there someone who eclipsed her?
Skylar's a big deal. Skylar's the same grade as me. Yeah, people love Skylar Diggins. Skylar was so serious about basketball, though, right? So like you would like she wasn't really out. You didn't really see her much. Like you see her in class and everything, and people would be like, "Oh, that's Skylar Diggins." But like Notre Dame's a weird school where it's only 8,000 people, so like you're in class with a bunch of athletes. Like no one's like there's like no fanboys about anything. But Ncaa was a huge deal too.
Oh, that's true. He was there at the same time too.
I mean, you know, obviously, you know, he got catfish, but like Ncaa was the finalist for Heisman. Like, not like Skylar was big. Ncaa was much bigger than Skylar on campus. Like when you're the starting middle linebacker for 4 years at Notre Dame, like you're gonna be a big deal.
It's a big deal. You mentioned you went on and played a little bit of professional basketball after Notre Dame. What was your journey? Where'd you wind up going?
Dude, it was a weird journey. So it started out like literally the day we lost to Wake Forest in the ACC tournament. Coach Brad brings me into his hotel room. He had a nice suite set up. Wanted to talk to all his guys, figure out what we're gonna do. He's like, Tom, like I know this year didn't go the way you wanted to, but like, are you interested in playing pro basketball? Like, I think you can have a lot of success. I know a couple agents we can put you in touch with. You want to play? I look him in the eye and I go, no, I have no interest in playing basketball. I am so done, coach. Like, I think this year was eye-opening for me. Like, yeah, it didn't go the way. Like, I think it's good closure. I think it's a good way to end it all. And he goes, I respect that. You know, just let me know whatever I do. Like, you need help interviewing, just let me know. And I go, thank you. I started interviewing for a couple jobs, and then I realized I made a mistake. I'm like, I don't want to wear a suit every day to the office working for IBM. So, like randomly, like this team from like England calls me from Durham. Like they're like, hey, we have a great deal for you. It's like you're gonna play professional basketball in the BBL. We're not gonna pay you, but we're gonna give you a full ride to get an MBA, like an MBA at like Durham University. It's like we'll cover your apartments or we'll cover your food. And I go, all right, I guess that gives me a year or two to really figure it out. So I'm like, I'm in. So I go from like telling Coach Bray I have no interest playing to going to Europe, and Coach Bray's like, "What's up with this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'm indecisive. I just the last minute decision." So the month before I go out to England, because this was all done like directly through me and like the school, like this guy out of Slovenia calls me. His name's Benjamin Stevic. And like literally, like I get a cell phone, I get a call from like, you know, like America's like one whatever number. Slovenia's code is not one. It's like 607. It's like I've seen like a 20 like digit number. And I go, yeah, I'm not going to answer that. Like definitely not going to answer. I'm actually working at Pine Tree basketball camp that weekend. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to answer that. and I listened to the voicemail. This dude with a thick Slovenian accent is like, "Hey, this is Benjamin Stevic. I'm an agent for my own company. I just wanted to see if you're interested in playing pro basketball. I could definitely get you a spot on a team." So I go, I mean, I appreciate him reaching out. So I call him. I kind of explain the situation. He's like, "Hey, I think you're going to have a very successful career. I want to sign you as one of my players now. You don't have to pay me this year. But no, you're better than England. I'm gonna actively look for you to find other teams. And I'm gonna throw all these teams out to you throughout the year. And you can say yes or no, but just know we're gonna find you a good spot." So I go, "I don't have to pay anything?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, sign me up." I signed a dotted line. I now have an agent. I go to England. And this guy, Benjamin, he's a worker. I'm in England for 24 hours and my apartment stunk. It was bad. The worst place I ever lived in the world. And he calls me. It's like, "Yo, how's it going?" I'm like, "I hate it here, man. England's dirt is damp. My apartment, I can't even walk around my apartment without socks on because how dirty it is. I think there's something under my bed that I don't really know about." And that's unfair to me saying things about Durham like that. But it wasn't a good apartment. Right. But he's like, "All right, it's "So you've changed your mind? You want to leave?" I go, "Listen, Ben, if you can find me a good thing, I'll leave." He's like, "Just give me 2 good games." Done. So first game we're playing the season, I get 25-10. The second game I get 17-10. And he goes, "All right, I got you a tryout in Finland." So I go, "Finland's cold. I didn't pack for a winter like that." It's a good spot. And I'm like, "Okay." And my mom's excited because my mom's Finnish. She's American, but she's half Finnish. So she's like, "Oh yeah, we'd love you to go up there. Reconnect with your roots." So I go up there, living 100 miles from Russia in Uensu. Loved it up there. I mean, it's cold up there, man. My eyebrows are freezing. It's dark for 24 hours. But had a really good season there. 10-day contract turned into a contract. Then had some rough patches earlier in the year. I thought I was gonna get cut. I'm calling my friends back home. I made the worst decision of my life. I'm gonna get cut. I should have stayed in England. They're like, "No, it's gonna be fine." End up having a good year though. Lead the league in blocks. Double-digit rebounds. But then I end up getting hurt in the championship game. I tear my meniscus. And I have surgery in Finland, and the surgery didn't go well. I will say that it did not go well. It was supposed to be a minor surgery, a 2-3 week recovery. After 2-3 weeks, I actually moved to Notre Dame for that winter, that summer to rehab my knee. I can't be at my parents' house. We don't have the equipment that I necessarily need in shape or to rehab my knee. But after 3 months, it just was not where it needed to be. And I had signed a contract to go to Poland for a decent amount of money. And unfortunately, it just came down to I can't play. And I get cut the day before my flight was supposed to take off because I told him, "Listen, I can't show up because all I have to do is pass a physical and I can get a check." I'm I pass a physical right now. So I got cut in Poland before I even showed up. I'd be taking the test to try to get past my physical. And then I started coaching at USM for a little while.
And that was the end of the playing days.
No, it wasn't actually. It was not the end of the playing days. Benjamin convinced me 6 months later to go out to Slovenia to play for a team right outside of Ljubljana. He's like, "You're gonna be under my." He's like, "I know your knee's gonna be fine. We're gonna get you rehab. I got you in a good landing spot. The last American that played in this team is in the NBA right now." And I'm like, "Well, I know this guy, so let me call him." So I call Kyle Casey. I'm like, "Yo, how's Helios?" He goes, "Dude, it's tough, but it's a good spot." I'm like, "Okay." I'm there for a month. I knew the day that I started playing that I was not ready to play. I'm like, if I'm going to go out here, I needed to play for at least a month to get a paycheck. So I'm like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get at least one paycheck out of this thing. Day before the month, I hyperextended my knee and it was over.
Oh, so you didn't get paid?
I didn't get paid, man. I was in Slovenia for a month. Played in 2 games. Didn't get a penny.
What was so tough about it? Was it just the level of competition or the play or?
No, it's the training they do there. So even when I was playing in Finland, the point guard team, he is one of the best point guards in Finland history, and he's played in a lot of leagues down in Serbia, Slovenia area, like the Yugoslavian bloc. And like the way they, like the coaches and the training staffs, like look at training, like they want to kill you. Like they just want to make you tough.
Yeah.
And like he would say, like after a long road trip, like they would just go to the gym and he's like, we're going to run out the lactic acid. Like you're going to be, if you don't go and work out right now, you're going to be tough. Like, even though your body's dead, it's like, no, you just go work out. So like when I show up, I kind of had that in mind, but like I hadn't really played in 6 months. Like I'm in decent, like bodily shape, but like I wasn't in like decent, like I hadn't like played up and down like since I got hurt really. So like thought I was in good shape. Dude, they killed me, man. Like they're literally like every day. Like, I thought they wanted to just break me. Like making me do. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, what are you doing? It's like, I guess that's why Luka Doncic is good. They were just killing him when he was like 14 years old.
At what point did you know you were done? Was it pretty much right then and there, or were you thinking, I'll rehab and I'll give this another shot, or were you done at that point?
When I hopped on the plane back to Pennsylvania, I'm like, it's done. There's no chance we're going back. Like, as much as I wanted to, it's just like my body can't do it. Like, and it stunk. I'm over it now, but like, and the reason why it really stunk is because like, the reason why it ended isn't necessarily because of anything I did. It's because I had a pretty minor injury in Finland. I had what I thought was a minor surgery done in Finland, and because of that decision, like it just like ended everything for me. So I was pretty salty about that for a while.
You think you would have, if there weren't injuries, you would have probably made a little career out of it? You think you'd probably still be playing if not for the injuries?
Like I always came with the mindset that I didn't want to play. So like last week, it was my 30th birthday, and my plan was like, I'll play till I'm 30. But like, I know a lot of people can make a lot of money doing it. But I was thinking about like the next steps. Like, what is the next step for me? If I play till I'm 35, it's like, do I like invest my money and like do like what someone like Ncaa done, who's been very successful, or do I try to go into coaching? I'm like, I think I'd rather try to take a more traditional approach to like a career. So it's like, I really can't take a bottom level sales job when I'm 35 years old. Right. Planning to play till 30, didn't make it close to 30. I think I made it to 25, but you know, it was a good run.
So what's life look like now? Like, do you see yourself? I mean, I know you're still playing pick up a little bit here and there, but do you see yourself getting into coaching or anything basketball related in your future?
Possibly. I mean, right now it's like I do. It does make me sad that I'm not more involved in basketball. I do like working with kids, and I do like teaching basketball. So like, I would never rule out like working with like an area like AAU program. To like help out, but I don't think I'd ever want to do like college coaching or high school coaching like that. That consumes so much of your life. To be a college coach is like, that's like, you have to be a weird dude to want to be a coach at a high level. And I don't think I have that in me.
You just got to find something that isn't so time consuming. Like this is why I'm doing this, because I have no desire to be a coach, but I'm still connected. Like I'm still involved somehow. So there may be a different avenue for you that doesn't involve coaching or
right. Because right now my only connection is like turn on ESPN or like League Pass, watching NBA games. I'm like, yeah, I'm watching, I'm breaking it down, talking to my friends about it. But it's like, I'm not really involved in it much. It kind of stinks because like for the first 23 years of my life, basketball is such an important thing. It's something like woke up, ate, slept, basketball, and that was it. Like, you know, my week, like we weren't taking vacations when I was a little kid. Like it was, everything's like, your vacation is like, you're doing a weekend tournament in Boston. Like we're playing AU Nationals in like Florida. That's your vacation, but make sure you play as best you can because you're trying to get a scholarship. Like basketball is so important. And it is kind of weird that as I got older, it's not what it was.
I got to ask you about a couple tournaments here. So,
okay.
Could you ever see yourself being part of a Notre Dame alumni team in the basketball tournament?
They would never invite me.
Okay.
They would never. So the TBT tournament, right? The first year of it, Notre Dame won.
And you weren't invited. You weren't invited, I'm guessing.
I wasn't invited. Unfortunately. But I get why I wasn't invited. I was a year out. We had like Luke Herringoni played, like Ryan Ayers played, like a lot of guys who had better college careers and had more established pro careers were playing. Year two, I'm like, I had a good year in Finland, but I'm hurt. like, there's a chance I was getting invited to that one because like some of my teammates were invited. I'm like, that's too bad. I really wanted to play in that, but they have no time for me nowadays if they were put together a team. Like I would be a behind the scene guys. Like I've been working with Scott Martin, like he was going to coach one, like leading into last year. And I was going to be kind of like a back room, like GM kind of guy. Like
there you go. That could be a ticket back into the game right there. Just be associated with the Notre Dame the basketball tournament team.
Just be the guy sitting on the other bench, legs crossed, sunglasses, coffee. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that idea.
Yeah, those guys get a ring too, I think.
They do. They get. But I mean, I think it's more important the check they break out.
Yeah, exactly. They're
I don't think the GM is getting much of that check.
Yeah. Have you ever come back and played in any of the tournaments in Maine? That we got the Noonan tournament in the summertime, which is getting bigger and bigger every year. A lot of guys come back. You ever come back and play in that?
I played in the Noonan tournament one time. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago. Troy Barney's convinced me to play. Troy was trying to stack a team, so he got me and Mike Allison to play, one of his former teammates. We lost in the championship. And then the year before I came to Chicago, I played in a tournament out of Rumford that like brought in a lot of different men's leagues team around the state.
That's the one I wanted to ask you about. Like I've heard so much about this tournament. It's one of the few tournaments I've never been to in my life. And it just seems like it's a random place to get like so many good teams and players in one area, but that tournament sounds legit.
It's a good tournament for sure. I was shocked. Like I thought like I was in decent shape. I'm like, oh, I'm going to run this thing. Like I'm going to kill it. And I got absolutely worked. Like I had like Riley Robinson on my team. I had Thomas Coyne on my team. And then like, I think Nick Gilpin was on the team too. Like young guys that are good players. I'm like, yeah, these guys are fresh out of high school. We're going to play well. We're playing against old men that are broken down, that like love basketball. They might be a little dirty, but like but we're going to kill them. And then we lost like all our games. I'm like, what happened? Like what happened?
Did you ever go to that tournament when you were a kid? Because I mean, that's your neck of the woods right there.
No, that tournament didn't exist when I was a kid. That was more of a recent thing. I know back when I was a little kid, Rumford area held like a pretty decent men's league, but they didn't do like a men's league tournament like that.
It's too bad. You mentioned Pine Tree Camp. You should just start collecting paychecks to come back to these camps here in Maine and like give a little 30-minute speech.
Okay, let's be real here. I still work Pine Tree basketball. I worked it 2 years ago. Like I took a week, like the last 2 years I've taken like one total week off. Like I'll taken weekends off, or like a Friday off. But like 2 years ago, Pine Tree, because obviously it didn't happen last summer. Like I took a week off and I worked Pine Tree. And I come in like they're talking about the coaches like, hey, I'm interested in myself. I'm like, hey, I don't really coach anymore. Not really involved with basketball much anymore, but I did at Notre Dame. So like that's why I'm here.
At any of these camps, have you ever been like that guy? You know, like usually at a week-long camp, they bring in like speakers who kind of give like a demonstration or like tell their story. Has that ever been you? Have you ever been the one to give like a little story about me?
Pine Tree has used and abused me for years. So like Pine Tree basketball camp, I used to go to every single year as a kid from like 5th grade to like senior high school. Even like when I was in the AAU circuit, like I'd come back from AAU Nationals, I'd go attend Pine Tree basketball camps because I had a lot of fun there. And then I worked it every single year, like just as a counselor. But like every coach that did like a demonstration or a talk, they just used me and abused me. And like every workout, like facet, like they're like, oh, Tom's here, he's working out. Like we're gonna run through a workout. They'll talk a little bit. We're else out here, like the coach is like, we're gonna run through a workout. We're gonna beat him up, and all the kids are gonna be like, wow, look at that. And I'm like, I've already done 2 today. Like, what are we doing here?
If you had to give one of these demonstrations or one of these sessions, and you had to give some words to the words of advice, what would be your approach? Like, would you kind of scare the shit out of kids? Like, life is hard, or would you be like the more gentle approach? Like, if you work hard, you can get places. Like, where would you go with your story?
My thing is, so I've done a few of these. I'm a little rusty right now, but let me think where I started with. Mine normally starts with, don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough because where you're from.
That's a good one, though.
If you're truly a good player and you're truly willing to work for it, you can get to the highest level possible. Because no one told me when I was like in high school, I said I wanted to play like in the Big East. Like people are like, you're from Maine, like that's not going to happen. And it's like, well, I'm good enough. Like, I know I'm good enough.
Yeah.
But just like, don't listen to like the people who don't care about you. Like, only like, there's be naysayers wherever you go. It's like, don't listen to them. Like, if you really truly want it and you're willing to work for it, like, it can happen.
It's good. I like that right there.
Yeah, and normally I stumble around a little harder. You know, I repeat it a few times, like remembering what I said, because I do tend to repeat things over and over again. So
I'm going to get you out of here one more. I got to bring up the Big East one more time because I was such a fan, I still am, but especially during that time frame. You mentioned some of the guys that just beat you up. Can you give me a couple more guys from that time frame that I know it's probably not fun to talk about getting worked out there, but who were some of these guys that you just had to go up against that were just not allowed to guard?
Andre Drummond dunked on me at the XL Center. I was guarding him. It was a bad idea. I don't know why I was guarding him. He dunked on me. One day we were playing Georgetown, and Coach Bray thought it'd be a good idea for me to guard Otto Porter. Otto Porter put 25 on me in the first half. Again, he had a good day. Like, it was bound to happen. Yeah. Let's see. I tried to dunk on Steven Adams one time. I just threw it over the rim. Like, Twitter was not kind to me after that one. Yeah. Thank God Twitter wasn't as popular as it was now, because it was an ESPN like Big Monday game. Steven Adams, I just threw a string over the rim. But probably the best, and because this is a Syracuse story, because this one cut close to home for Notre Dame, because so my teammate Jaron, his younger brother is Jeremy Grant, who's had a very successful NBA career. Obviously, a much better basketball player than me. Jeremy's freshman year, so I think he only did 2 years at Syracuse, but his freshman year, like, he hadn't started, but for some reason, I can't remember, like, I think Fab Melo wasn't playing. So, like, he ended up, like, getting into the starting lineup for, like, that game, first game he started. And, again, like, listen, I was a starting 4 guy for the game, but, like, I shouldn't be guarding Jeremy Grant. But, like, I got no choice. And, like, Jeremy had, like, 13 points to me in the first half. Jaron couldn't even look at me. He was so mad at me. And then, but probably the worst part is, like, because sometimes Coach Bray's, like, halftime speeches, they really cut deep. Like, sometimes they hurt. And he just looks at me. He was disgusted at me too. He's pacing around the locker room, and he finally catches my eyes, and he just looks at me and goes, "T-Night, do you want me to go get his autograph for you?" And that's all he said to me during halftime. They kept walking. Like, didn't even say another word to me. Like that is something that hurt.
We can't end the podcast on a note like that. So how about like a good moment? Give me like your best moment from Notre Dame in the Big East.
Best moment in the Big East. So, like we said, like, there's a lot of times it's in and out of the starting lineup. Going into my senior year, so not my 5th year, my senior year. We had a guy named Garrick Sherman, who was a transfer from Michigan State, who's played my same position. That was getting eligible. So he was clearly going to be the starting 4 or 5 man. We had Jack Cooley already at the 5 as a, Big East, all Big East the year before. So going to that year, I'm like, I'm not going to play that much. Thank the Lord. Garrick had an awful month stretch, like awful. So, like, I went from, like, not playing it, like, for, like, 3 straight games to, like, Coach Bray just, like, randomly at MSG playing against St. John's. He just looks down the bench. He goes, "T-Night, you're in." And I'm like, I heard Coach Bray say that in 3 games. It was the first half. And I played decently well. I ended up getting, like, blocked on the game-winning shot by their point guard. But, like, I played well enough in the moments leading up to it that, like, Coach Bray, okay, Tom can play. We go directly down to South Florida. And Coach, I thought I was joking because I hadn't heard in a while. We're over scouting the day before, and, like, our scouting report is always, like, on the projector. It says, like, the stats for the player that we're playing against, and then the person they're guarding, like the starting lineup against them. And I see Knight, like, up on the board, and I go, "Is he joking? Like, what?" And I'm like, and then they're like, "Yeah, T-Night, you're starting." And I go, "All right, okay, good deal. And I've only played like 10 minutes in the last 6 games, but okay, we're good." And I end up scoring like 17 points. So, and I have a couple big blocks and a couple big dunks that really seal the game. And after that game, Coach Bray just, like, walks in. He goes, "T-Night, we've always knew you had it in you. Like, we're so proud of you. You're the reason why I won this game." And from that, I started the rest of the games that year because of that jump off point. So, like, We're wearing black jerseys down in Florida, the Sun Dome. There was no students. There was no students watching the game, but it was one of 2 games I had over 17 points. So, it was a good day for me.
That's a good one right there. That's not a bad way. Not a lot of people can say that. That's good right there. Before we get up out of here, I always give my guests a chance to say their last piece. If there's anyone you want to say thank you to, any shout outs you want to give, anything at all, this is your last chance before we get up out of here for the night.
All right. We've been going for a little while here. I could go down memory lane all day, but yeah, in terms of one, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to take the stroll down memory lane. But also there's a lot of coaches I'd like to thank, everybody brought up Dave Garrish, Coach Kane, but probably the biggest influence outside of my dad in basketball is Coach Parker. Coach Parker is the first coach that really truly made me believe in myself as a basketball player. And when he told me that you can make it and be good, I actually believed it. And the way he coached me, was just something that I really appreciated. I don't like coaches that play mind games. I like people that are blunt. And Coach Parker would just look up. He's like, "Hey, I love you, but you suck today." And that's something I appreciate, because he's not going to sugarcoat it. He's going to tell you what's up, but also when you're playing well, he's going to tell you exactly what you need to hear. So, in terms of I can never be more thankful for any person in the state of Maine than Coach Parker.
There we go. Yeah, legend around these parts, man. I think he's still coaching in some capacity. Even
he still calls me all the time. We do a back and forth thing where we're supposed to talk to each other once a month, but he's a stubborn old man. So it's if I don't call him that month, he won't call me. So he's like, "Oh, I thought it was your month to call me. You didn't call me."
I got to get him on the podcast at some point. I feel like he'd have a bunch of great stories to tell too.
He'd have some crazy stories. He coached TJ Cowett. He coached Andy Bedard. He coached Sam McClary. He coached me. He coached Keegan. He going way beyond that too. From his Ncaa days. That guy is locked into the history of Maine basketball.
Yeah, be a good one. I might have to use my connections with Mr. Knight here to go get Coach Parker next at some point. We'll see.
Yeah, but you have to do a 3-part podcast. You're going to talk to him.
Shout out to Tom Knight for coming through on Big Time Hoops, the podcast. I was trying to figure this out. We just had the NCAA tournament, trying to figure out how many Mainers have actually had NCAA tournament wins. How many wins did you guys get in the tournament?
We only had one. Fortunately.
But you went. You were there.
We went 4 times. And every time we lost was an upset. We never lost to a higher seed. We always lost to we had the white jerseys on. We're confident. We're we're going to make the Sweet 16 this year, and then we just lose in the first round.
You got one though. You got one win. That's more than a lot.
Yeah, we hope so. We were the 2 seed. We beat the 14 seed or the 15 seed.
Who was it? Who's?
Okay, the one win we had in the NCAA tournament in my tenure was against Akron. It was in Chicago. We were the 2 seed, and then we followed it up by a loss to Florida State. Big loss to Florida State. But the 2 years after I left, they were the back-to-back Elite Eights. So I like to think I had a hand in those, even though I know I didn't.
You were roughing up the guys. Who was it? Augustine? Who was the big guy on those teams?
Yeah, it was August, Bonzi Colson. The guards were Demetrius Jackson, who obviously was in the NBA. You had Jaron come back for a year NBA. Then you had Steve Astoria, who's had a hell of a career over in Germany.
Yeah, some great teams at Notre Dame. You were part of them. Shout out to Tom for coming through. Make sure everyone's checking out all the previous episodes wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Trying to get those subscribers up. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel on there. And we'll see you next time with another big time episode of Big Time Hoops, the podcast. Thank you, everyone.